Hello, everyone that's come into the room. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes for people to come on screen and join us. It's fun to watch all the little pictures pop up on the screen. I love when people show their little pictures of where they are. Somebody's got the snow up there and pine trees.
I see we've got a couple of folks from our nearby city of Bainbridge Island arriving, and that's really fun. Winifred, good to see you. Susan, it's wonderful that you're here. You'll be hearing a little bit about Zero Waste Bainbridge or later on in the evening.
So what do you think, Lori? Should we get started here?
Let's go. Absolutely.
I don't want to waste a moment of your precious information time, so I'll just kick it off. Again, hello, everyone. I am Tammy Mulcahy. I'm a new member of ESRAG's Plastic Solutions Task Force, and I get to welcome you all to this presentation, which is the Rotary family's role in ending plastic waste. So first off, the chat. If you could go on there now, because we're going to give it just a minute or two before we start for you all to introduce yourselves, say where you're from, put up any important links or info you want to share. Because you know, at the end we are recording this, and I will remind you to record the chat for yourself so you can refer back and have these resources of people to connect with. And there will also be important links for you to follow, which includes the Plastic Solutions Task Force newsletter. I encourage you all to subscribe. What's exciting about today is that there has been a great show of interest in plastics pollution, and that's what we need, that kind of energy. We have a tight 1-hour program that includes time for questions. And after our speaker and answering some of those questions, we will have a short presentation of the annual plan. But during the presentation, you can enter your questions in the chat. And our amazing Zoom director and Plastic Solutions co-chair, Olderico Caviglia, let's give him a little clap of the hands, or just even if it's in your head or in the chat, because he is doing this from Milan, Italy, where it is currently 3 o'clock in the morning. So bless him and his cup of coffee. So now our speaker of the day, Lori Cloutier, serves as a co-leader of the Plastic Solutions Task Force, part of ESRAG, and I haven't said this yet, but ESRAG stands for Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. And the task force is working to address root causes of plastic pollution and to help develop a global network, and that's like you, me, all of us here today, that global network to rethink and influence how we create plastic, how we use it, and how we dispose of it. Now, Lori served as the executive director of Rotary Club of Oakland, California for 25 years. And today she is a civilian member of the Paulsbo Rotary Club, which is up in Washington State. And she created the Trash Talk Task Force in 2018. Now, here's a very amazing statement. The Paulsbo Club has diverted more than 45,000 pounds of plastic. That's a lot of plastic. They've diverted it from landfill to become composite decking through a program at the Trex company. Now, that's an inspiring effort. But the bad news is that 11 million tons of plastic enters our oceans every year. We have to do more, and we have to do it quickly. So let's welcome Lori today to learn about how Rotary clubs can play an important role in reducing plastic waste. So welcome, Lori.
Okay. Thank you very much. I am really excited to be here today and talking about what I believe is Rotary's most important role that we could play in addressing this. So let's cross our fingers that I can share my screen properly. Okay, are you seeing a title slide right here? Excellent. Okay. Oh my gosh, my Zoom has just quit. I'm going to switch to my mobile hotspot. Tammy, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me and see the screen? Okay, very good. Well, then let's get started. I see that we also have Diane Landry is trying to get on. Olderico, I don't know if you can see that, but let's get started here. So the role of Rotary clubs in ending plastic waste, before we look at what needs to be done and how, I'm going to talk very quickly about two big reasons that it's important to work hard. One of them is the scale of plastic production in the world, and the other is health concerns. So let's start with one of the most terrifying and I think problematic kinds of packaging in the world, sachet packaging. Now the sachets are little packets of multi-layered pouches that were invented to hold things like ketchup and soy sauce back in the 50s. But in the 1980s, the international company Unilever, their Indian branch, put a little bit of shampoo in a sachet that just would work for one shampooing. And it could sell for 1 rupee in India. And suddenly a whole new market was born for international brands. This has created a huge economy. By 2004, it was a $13 trillion per year industry. And today, 5.5 million sachets of just laundry detergent, just in Indonesia, are sold. Worldwide, 855 billion are sold per year, and often to countries that don't have waste management infrastructure. This results in situations like this. The sachets have no place to go. They blow around in the wind, and they're not picked up by the traditional waste pickers because they have no value. They have 3 layers, 2 polymer layers with a metal layer that protects goods from heat and humidity, but they cannot be recycled at all. Yet they continue to flood in to countries with no capacity to manage that waste. So they end up blowing around. They are sometimes burnt in open fires and end up in our rivers and waterways. They also displace locally produced products, and they replace traditional methods of selling to people. People used to bring their own containers, which they would fill with items, and now those have been displaced. They've been displaced here at my local Safeway. You can look that canned tuna on the bottom 2 shelves is now sharing a lot of shelf space with the top 2 rows where tuna is sold in sachets. There is an expected increase in these sachets. They're so profitable, they are expected to increase 5.8% compounded annually until 2031. And the expansion is mostly planned for North American and Asian personal care and cosmetics sectors. So this problem is not going away anytime soon, and yet I have not been able to see any strong restrictive measures anywhere to start to limit their use. They seem to be politically resistant to being restricted. So is anybody working with trying to recycle these? Well, in the Philippines, in a suburb outside of Manila, they're putting into eco bricks about 15 to 18% of shredded sachets, and this increases the strength of the brick by about 30%. When this is up to full capacity, it could process and recycle rather 1 ton of these sachets every day. And 1 ton per day sounds nice. Until you see that the daily trash in the Philippines is 4,600 tons per day. And 1 ton is just not enough to make a true impact that will protect our animals and protect our waterways. Still a good idea to do. It's nice, but it doesn't have the impact we need to move the needle. Just like sachet production, plastic production is increasing at a tremendous rate. It doubles about every 10 years. It'll double again by 2040, and ocean plastics are expected to triple in that time. And part of the reason why, or whoops, surprise slide, if plastic is so big that if it were a country, it would be the 5th largest producer of greenhouse gas emissions. So the scale of plastic is overwhelming. And part of the reason is that we are able to produce it so easily. So an example is this natural gas well. And we in the United States have some of the largest shale deposits in the world. And when we are pulling up the natural gas by fracking, hydraulic fracturing, we get a byproduct, ethane gas. And it's been kind of worthless in the past, and it was just flared off. But today, it is piped right over to ethane cracking facilities that apply a lot of heat and processes to create an ethylene molecule, which then can be turned into polyethylene, one of the biggest building blocks for plastics. This is a Dutch Shell facility in Pennsylvania that is just opening now. It's going to add 1.6 million tons per year when it's at full capacity of little beads of polyethylene. There was a glut in ethylene, and that keeps prices very low, very competitive, and a lot of smart people are working to figure out where they can use this ethylene, where they can sell it to create even more single-use packaging. So quite a bit of plastic is mismanaged and finds its way into our oceans. Imagine 5 grocery bags full of plastic sitting on 1 foot of your favorite beach. Now imagine 5 bags on every foot of beach and coastline in the entire planet. That gives you a picture of how much plastic is going into our oceans. And that was back when the amount was 8 million tons per year. That amount has grown. And what it does when it gets into the ocean is it breaks into microplastics because of the action of the sun thermodegrading or degrading it. And it doesn't just break into little miniature portions of the parent plastic. It actually produces 250 to 15,000 chemical compounds when it's exposed to sunlight and salt water. Some of these are known bad chemicals. Most of them, however, are unknown. These are crazy compounds, but the point is, it is not chemically inactive. I always thought plastic was an inert substance, but it is not at all. Part of the reason is because plastic products are not just resins. They also have additives, sometimes up to 70%. These change the mechanical properties of the plastic. It might make it more flexible or more clear or more fire retardant. but these chemicals create quite a chemical soup when they come into our oceans. We also have a lot of plastic in our air. So when your tires wear down, where does that tire rubber go? It's really not rubber, it's a synthetic. And a lot of it gets entrained into the atmosphere. And according to this particular study, which was conducted on US national parks, far from the sources of a lot of plastic, 1,000 tons each year are deposited over these vast tracts of national parklands. And they can study those, and they found out a whole lot of it is tire dust. And a lot of it are tiny textile fibers. So the little ones can get up into the atmosphere and cross continents. And the heavier ones tend to fall down to earth, closer to their source. But this is another assault. If 1,000 tons are falling on our national parklands, how much is falling into our oceans that cover 3/4 of the surface of the planet? So the size and magnitude of plastic, the way it spreads into our air and our waters, most of the plastic in the water is actually in the water column or down on the seabed. But in addition to that, it's a lot more toxic than we believe. The last 2 years, we've had a lot of new studies and new information. 2 years ago, the Society for Endocrinology put out this report on plastic EDCs in health. EDCs are endocrine disrupting chemicals. They imitate chemicals. They often act, they're received like an estrogen, or they block androgens. And it takes the tiniest little bit, because hormones are measured in parts per billion, sometimes parts per trillion. So they are received by receptors that think they're getting a hormone, and they're getting, in fact, a disrupting chemical. These chemicals disturb the body's hormone systems, and they can cause cancer and diabetes, but also reproductive disorders, neurological impairments of developing fetuses and children, and death. This particular study went out on a limb and said, hey, we've been saying, yeah, we know that these chemicals and plastics are out there, but we don't know for sure what they're doing. The endocrinologists have said there are so many studies done in so many parts of the world with so many populations, backed by animal studies where we see what's happening with animals. They've been drawing a direct causal link between plastic exposure and human health. Our fast food contains plastics. 80% of fast foods, chicken McNuggets, hamburgers tested in the United States have plastics in them and the attendant chemicals. And phthalates some phthalates are also endocrine disrupting chemicals. They don't last as long as the more serious PFAS chemicals, which can never be destroyed and move up the food chain. But phthalates are mass produced. They're used for tons of commercial products. And Project Tender, a group of scientists and health professionals, are recommending that the entire class of phthalates be restricted until we know more about them. They say that what's happening is when a phthalate that is well studied is causing concern, a new phthalate that we don't know much about is put in its place. They liken it to a game of whack-a-mole. You get one of them studied and another one pops up. And the associations are hyperactivity, aggression, and attention deficit disorder, and other problems. One of the studies says that women who have higher levels of phthalates in their urine in their second semester have 3 times the probability that their child will be diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. All of us, 98% of us anyway, have phthalate biomarkers in our bodies. We've had 4 ways of dealing with plastic that have been failing us: recycling, doing cleanups, incineration and landfill, and developing new technologies. And I have been a devout recycler for years. And I will continue to enthusiastically and hopefully recycle aluminum, glass, cardboard, but plastic really is not very recyclable. When China stopped accepting recyclable plastics from around the world, it became really clear that we've been misled about the value of plastic recycling. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Products are made from thousands of types of resins that cannot be recycled together. They have to be sorted separately because they melt at different melting points. So 94% of our United States plastic cannot economically be recycled. Contamination is a major issue. One type of plastic can contaminate another. Virgin resins are often cheaper, so there's often no market for many plastics. And then when we do everything right, it could only be recycled 1, 2, or 3 times at the most. According to the Pew Trust, if we did everything right, if we restricted the amount of resins that could go into packaging, adopted some standards, they think mechanical recycling would probably peak at about 20%. So in the words of Judith Enck from Beyond Plastics, we are not going to recycle our way out of the plastic problem. Now, don't get me wrong. We should still recycle plastics as requested by our local recyclers because they're 20%, even 5% is better than nothing. It's just that this is not Rotary's role. It's not falling here in the area of recycling. We need something better. Just as an aside, in this last spring, the California Attorney General subpoenaed Exxon to find out exactly how much they knew and when about the non-recyclability of plastic and its toxicity. That'll be an interesting one to watch. Cleanups are a popular go-to for groups like Rotary Clubs. They're fun, you can see immediate reward, but when your bathtub is overflowing, you don't just reach for the mop. You need to turn off the tap. So cleanups are good, but they do not reduce the amount of plastic that we have. So for our members of Rotary out there, we can think of it like before we had Polio Plus, Rotary Clubs year after year would be donating cots and clean bedding and iron lungs to help take care of the victims of polio. But when we got a vaccine and could prevent polio in the first place, then we were able to really get on top of the problem. We need to find and develop a vaccine for plastic. Incineration and landfill both have problems. Incineration has problematic emissions, and landfill runs out and is extremely expensive to build. We've also put our faith that new technology is going to help us, and we should be hopeful about plastic eating worms and bacteria and enzymes, but these new technologies will take 5 to 10 years before they can really be operating on a scale that will protect us from so much plastic waste. So turning off the tap for all plastic production makes no sense. We are still going to need artificial hearts and strong, lightweight bicycle helmets. Pretty much we can stipulate, and the world community agrees, we need to turn off the tap of single-use plastics and packaging. But what do we do? What do we replace these things with? If you're going to have a big Rotary event, what do you replace your plastic bottles or your paper cups with? What's the way to go? And the United Nations Environment Program studied 10 countries, the substitutions, the policies, and the regulations that they use to see the answer. And the surprising result was that the problem of single-use plastic is not the plastic, it's the single use. So let's take a look at this. Look at the CO2 impacts of various kinds of cups. The tallest yellow one is producing the most carbon dioxide, and it is paper with a polyethylene liner and a paper sleeve. If we go on over to the last yellow bar, that is a bio-based plastic. All of these disposable plastics are much worse than ceramics, stainless steel with polypropylene lid, or a glass cup, which can all be reused. You get the same kind of problem when we look at water usage. So 500 paper cups consume nearly 370 gallons of water to create, but using a ceramic cup 500 times is 53. 370 versus 53 gallons of water. And when we look at cutlery, you would think that it would take a lot of uses before stainless steel cutlery would break even against its disposable counterparts, but actually 2 uses of stainless steel utensils breaks even, and for decades after, those little forks there continue to operate with no more impact than what you use to wash them. So here's one of the big takeaways. When single-use plastics are banned and they are replaced by other disposables, we don't necessarily become more environmentally sustainable. These regrettable substitutes usually involve cutting down more forests, extracting more metals, or growing more agricultural products, creating vast monocultures of corn or bamboo. The bottom line is that anything that is used for only a few minutes and thrown away never makes up for the cost of extracting and manufacturing. It never makes it up. What the United Nations Environmental Program, the Pew Trust, Rethink Disposable, and Upstream are all calling for is going to require a huge behavior change and a switch from disposable systems to reuse and refill systems. So how could Rotary get involved? Policy changes, such as extended producer responsibility legislation, are going to be necessary, but Rotary clubs are not political advocacy groups. We can provide information and teach people about the best practices, but we're not going to be, I'm not suggesting we go down the road of political advocacy. The other thing, though, that is needed is behavior change. And let's poke at this just a little bit. Behavior change is going to be tough because many cultures, including US, Australian, have become, I mentioned that because I've seen people from both countries here tonight, have become addicted to the convenience of the throwaway lifestyle. Back in 1955, we came to a fork in the road and we took the wrong route. We know this now. We know information about the scale of plastic and the toxicity of it that we could not imagine back then. We need a new kind of normal. Normal is disposable and might look like cases of plastic water bottles. But a new normal could be something as simple as using insulated water dispensers and a washable cup. These are aluminum cups, and single-use aluminum is extremely bad for the environment. But when you can wash it and use it many, many times, it starts becoming a sustainable solution. When we did our event, we borrowed 1,200 pieces of cutlery from Sustainable Bainbridge, and we have people from Sustainable Bainbridge in our audience tonight. We borrowed these things and wrapped them in a paper towel, which would become the napkin, and people put them in a bucket, which we also borrowed from Sustainable Bainbridge's tableware lending library, filled it with a little water, and washed them a couple days later in a commercial kitchen. It really wasn't that hard to do. We got a lot of comments by people who attended our event, and it made me realize that while we were lowering our environmental footprint, we were also teaching others. In fact, Rotary clubs are a perfect fit to inspire global change We already have a structure where there are clubs in our local communities. We're visible because we hold public fundraisers and events. We can tweak ideas for cultural context. For instance, a reuse solution that might work in one country might not work in another. And we've got people all over to help dig into the weeds of local needs and customs. Rotarians can be force multipliers. When we figure out how to run one of our events using refill and reuse, our Rotarians learn, and they often serve on other boards, other groups, and they can say, oh, well, you know, at Rotary, we did it this way and it worked out pretty well. And Rotary clubs are full of problem solvers, enhanced by the fact that we have people from all kinds of different walks of life, giving us different perspectives. And this becomes very important, this kind of influence, when you study community-based social marketing. This book compiles the results from tons of large campaigns run by utility companies and water companies that were trying to change behavior. And lots of money went into these campaigns, and the results could be measured right at the meters. And what they learned was that information and awareness programs alone do not change behavior. You can do a campaign to educate people, but what really changes behavior is when people are influenced by what other people are doing and don't want to be different. It's a deep desire to do what's normal. And if you and nobody else is acting on it, it is likely that perhaps you won't either. So who are these other people that can influence others? I think that those people should be us, and that the role of Rotary in ending plastic waste is on the left side of this bell-shaped curve, as innovators showing how it's done in communities that don't do much in reuse, that do a lot of disposables, or being early adopters in communities where several groups are already working on getting rid of disposables. When Rotary leans in and starts showing that this is something that we're doing, it helps to normalize that behavior. And I think it's an amazing opportunity that we can use our events and fundraisers to make this happen and to help teach by demonstrating and by doing. So imagine 1.4 million Rotarians quietly changing from disposables to reusables in their homes. That's not visible. It's really not going to be seen. It's going to make, it's a good thing to do, but it's when we do it loudly, show the solutions we've found, show that it's normal, that it's doable. That's when we're going to help spread the word and influence a change in behavior that is vastly needed. So the core project I'm encouraging clubs to consider is to make your club's public events, fundraisers, and meetings a living demonstration of how to ditch the disposables. As an aside, this core project needs a name. The working title has been Project Reuse and Refill. The founder of ESRAG, Karen Kendricks, has suggested once is not enough. And for you hardcore Rotarians out there, my suggestion is honk if you love Paul Harris. And that's with apologies to Cliff Docterman, my favorite RI president from 92 to 93, who wanted that to be his presidential theme. But seriously, this project needs a good name, one that will be sticky. Send your suggestions to me, and if we choose one, I will buy your ESRAG membership for a year. The project Refill and Reuse is like any other Rotary project. It's not something to just be dumped into the laps of already overworked fundraising committees. Plans need to be made well in advance because we need to be aware of local public health rules. We might need a whole new source of supplies. We need to know what kind of resources are around that we can borrow from or purchase and then loan to others. Plan a wash-up celebration. We're going to be washing some dishes, or pay a local youth group to do it, or rent it. And start with the easiest replacements and grow. You can take this project on in phases. And now a quick word about the wash-up celebration. Good people, good music, and bad jokes can make anything a lot of fun. And a well-designed wash-up celebration is a chance to meet and talk and bond and develop camaraderie and pride in what we're doing. We're in an era of social media, but this kind of work develops social glue. It's fun. And it's not going to be quite as convenient, but once you have the tools in place, it's not that bad. And where has convenience gotten us anyway? Rotary has a 4-way test. Convenience is nowhere on it. We don't ask, is it convenient? But we do ask if it will build goodwill and better friendships. Project refill and reuse can do that. And it can also attract new members and younger members. So to be perfectly clear, what is the most effective role Rotary Clubs can play in ending plastic waste? It's leading your community in changing from single-use plastics and disposables. Now, there are many Rotary Clubs that are in countries where the cost of labor is very low. At the RI convention in Houston this summer, a Rotarian from Kenya said, you know, we just don't have the disposable culture that you have here. We have people who wash dishes, and we just don't have that same demand on our time. And so for countries that are already ahead of the game, what can they do? There are some incredibly exciting next step ideas. Algramo is a company that was first formed in Santiago, Chile. The founder was very upset with the sachet problem, especially the fact that people who were poor were paying more per ounce because they couldn't afford to get a whole bottle. So they started offering refills of containers for soaps and products into reusable packaging that was that the customer kept. They refilled them, and the refills were brought via electric trikes. They now have become kind of big time. They've got different kinds of programs using RFID and cashless transactions in San Francisco and New York. But their start, giving an alternative way to refill, is maybe something that Rotary Clubs could develop to bring jobs to local economies, help outfit tiny stores with some touchless refillable fillers. Rotaractor in Red Lodge, Montana led the way in providing a filtered water bottle refill station as a tool that their town needed. My club in Paulsbo, we don't have any of these things, and yet we do big waterfront events where tons of plastic bottles are sold. A refill station could eliminate that need. Castro Valley has helped Meals on Wheels convert from disposable to reusable food trays. I hope we do a program on the exciting technologies and startups that are out there and being used already. We have some upcoming events. We will have our very first social half hour on November 30th. This is a bring your own beverage. It's casual. It's for people who want to get together and talk about plastic and talk about ideas in a very casual way. We also have 2 campaign group organizing meetings. So what is the campaign group? We need a group of people who can brainstorm and then produce a campaign to inform other Rotary Clubs of these possibilities, support them, build tools like a ready response kit when a club wants to start exploring the program. We're having them at 2 different times because we've got to cover an entire globe, and we hope that these 2 different times will make it possible for people who live anywhere to attend one of them. The QR code next to this is the sign up for our newsletter. If you sign up, then we can get you the information on these meetings. So the call to action to you is to challenge your club to eliminate single-use plastics and disposables in their meetings, events, and fundraisers, or to develop potential global grants where we can enable replacement systems for disposable sachets. The second request is to join the Plastic Solutions campaign. I hope you will consider joining in this fight. I think it is truly a way that Rotary could lead to true change. This is a river. It's the worst picture I could find. The very sick river. It needs us to create a vaccine against plastic. Reusables and refillers are that vaccine. So let's get to work and give it a shot, pun intended. Because seriously, a lifestyle that can create this is just not something we want to leave for our children. That is the end of my program, and I am wondering if we have any questions. So they have been sent to me. There, nice to be back in the room. Why is single-use aluminum bad for the environment? I thought aluminum recycling markets were very strong. That is a great question. So aluminum markets are strong. Aluminum can be recycled infinite numbers. The problem is that when you make a new aluminum object, you can only use 70-some% of recycled aluminum. You still need to use 30% of new aluminum. And aluminum means mining bauxite. But the big problem with it is the processing of that aluminum. So aluminum is sometimes called solid electricity. It takes so many resources and the emissions are humongous. You have to use aluminum a lot of times to break even. And so when you see single-use aluminum out, I used to be so excited when I would go to the zoo and get my water in an aluminum container. But the problem with recycling, we've been so fixated on recycling, we don't take into account the entire life cycle analysis of our substitute products. And if we don't do that, if we don't look at the bigger problem, then we're liable to do things that are even worse in our zeal to eliminate plastic waste. Are there any other questions? In that case, Tammy, I think it's time maybe for our next part of the program.
Yeah, I first wanted to say that this is cute that somebody had shared the encourage using, of course, your own grocery bags. But as your food is going down the conveyor belt, yell to the packer at the end, no plastic, as a way to tell all the people around you that you're not using plastic, and please encourage you to not use it at all. Yes, so questions are over. Just so you all know, a couple things I need to mention were that this will be on YouTube, of course. And at the conclusion of the program, we are going to open up the room to allow for some networking. So stick on board here when the program is over. So right now we are going to have an annual plan shared by Franz Mueller, who is another co-chair of the Plastic Solutions Task Force. And I believe Olderico in Milan, Italy, is queuing that up for you to watch.
I think that's time now to go to the other point we have set for this time, the presentation, and that's to share with you what we are going to do. So the annual plan of our task force. So I'm going to share my my screen, and if I can see how to, okay. Uh, so that's something in very quickly about the highlights of our annual plan from our task force. And you see again here our address, internet address, and also the QR codes you can scan to arrive to us and to arrive to ESRAG, which is the real help for all of us Rotarians, and also reference for non-Rotarians for anything which has to deal with the environmental sustainability. So what is the top priority? The top priority is more or less what we have heard up to now, and that's to help clubs and Rotarians, so persons directly, to eliminate the single-use plastic and all the disposable, which are the biggest part of the waste which goes around in the world, in the environment, and it's then hardly collected and disposed of. So we want to launch a campaign and create action plans to assist clubs to go in this direction. We will promote a project to reduce and refill, as Lori has explained before, to use something which is not disposable, but which you can wash, you can reuse, and so on. And this will then end with the World Refill Day, an event and a pledge program. To do that, we need to establish a team for operation, and that means that we are also looking for other people to come with us to help in this action. And so, if you want to do it, you are welcome to come with us. Another goal is to spread the knowledge. It is something which we are doing since a while, and we want to create awareness of plastic waste issues, but not only in general, but also region specific, because we know that the situation is quite different from one to another region. There are places like towers in Europe, in many countries, where there is a good collection, a good separation of the waste, and therefore the possibility also to recycle a part of the plastic, what can be recycled, which is anyway a small part, and not leave it on the terrain. That doesn't happen in other countries, in other areas where they even cannot collect the waste. And so there should be a different approach, and we want to help our Rotarian friends to deal with that in any one of the places in the world. So that will be done with the liaison with the ESRAG regional chapter. ESRAG has regional chapters, and to help local activities. We want to encourage clubs to identify needs and resources, local needs and resources, and we will share information to develop action, and also to help developing global grants, so to get some assistance also from the foundation. Other part of our activity is to inform. So through our means, we want to provide up-to-date information on all plastic problems and solutions. That will be done through the website, blog, and the newsletter, the social media, and the webinars we are organizing from time to time. And we will also showcase specific projects so that everybody can find inspiration or help from what the others are doing. So here is another QR code that is probably the same you have seen before, which will lead you to connect and be able to subscribe directly to our newsletter, where we list all what I said before. Other goals are to assist clubs for global grants, as I said, and to develop a networking between clubs and other activities in this area to increase the membership of Plastic Solutions in all regions, so that we can be more present and more active everywhere for this important activity. And finally, to develop an enthusiastic working team to do what we are planning to do. So that's a Plastic Solution, a task force of ESRAG, and we will be happy to welcome all of you in our team to be active and to be helpful in trying to reduce first and possibly in the very end to eliminate the problem of plastic waste. At this point, I think that we will just see if there are other questions specifically on this part of the action. If not, we arrive at the end of the time we have.
Didn't quite get the sentence ended there, but yes, we are at the end of things, and but a couple things to remember, that this will be on YouTube. If you want to save the chat, you just go to the bottom of the chat box and there's 3 little dots there, so you can save it, so you have the information that is for all the people who attended. I want to thank Lori and Franz and Rico. Thanks to each of you who came today. You've heard this enough, but I'm just going to say it one more time, and that change starts with education, but real change only happens when real people start to make it happen. So please consider joining our team. Again, we are going to be available for 10 minutes after this chat, and just open it up to everybody there. And thank you for coming. And if you sign off, have an amazing plastic-free day or evening, wherever you are in the world. And yeah, let's try to make change happen. So I was opening up the group to everyone. I assume, Olderico, you are taking care of that.
Thank you. The microphones are open, so if you want to do some networking, now it's time to talk each other.
I have a question on the first part of the presentation. May I ask it?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
So you had mentioned that there was a group where you could go borrow or rent or whatever their utensils. And that's very intriguing that there might be a place like that. Was it a nonprofit? Or is it like, could you rent it from a restaurant supply company? Like, how do you find that to have reusable, rentable goods for your party?
I am so glad you asked that question. The organization Zero Waste Bainbridge set up a tableware lending library, and several representatives from that organization are with us tonight. And it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing service. It's completely free. We don't rent it. Community members can look at a spreadsheet and see what size and shapes of tablecloths, baskets, plates, cloth napkins, all the things that you would need to do an event. And it's remarkable. I don't know how many of these are out there. Susan or Diane, are there many organizations doing this, or is this just something that's very unique and special?
Well, we are hoping that more people will start to do it, but it started with I'm one of the librarians, and one of my fellow librarians, she was storing things in her house and people were borrowing tablecloths, and she was accumulating at Rotary. utensils and plates. And finally, we were able to find a place that would let us store our goods. And right now we're doing weddings for hundreds and hundreds of people. And now that COVID is easing up and we lend our utensils to Rotary, and they have really been open to the green team. So it's catching on. People are hearing about us. We hope it spreads. We do it all for free though. It takes time but it's a wonderful thing. It eliminates disposables.
Do you think that Rotary clubs could create a tableware lending library in their communities? I don't see any reason why we couldn't, or why we couldn't work with a partner organization that is maybe in a particularly good situation to be able to do the work of staffing the library. There might be some very interesting partnership opportunities out there. I want to recognize Liz. I saw very briefly before my computer had a glitch and I lost all the chat information, but you're a brand new member of Rotary?
I am. I haven't been I think you call it inducted. I haven't officially become a member yet, but I filled out my paperwork, and so I am actually really passionate about environmental stewardship. So I was so excited to find this on the website, like, oh my gosh, Rotary is doing a lot. And yes, I'm going to take this to my club and say, I would volunteer to bring silverware to meetings, because right now our group, we have lunch every week. And it's all single-use disposables. So, yeah.
Okay.
To be here, thank you.
There's some real blue sky there.
Hello, I wanted to ask a question, if possible.
Yes.
Yeah, to you actually, in your first presentation, I found it really illuminating and very informative on plastics, especially on plastics, and you gave very detailed information on plastics and the effect of plastic also to the environment. But now my question is, I'm from Nairobi and we deal with a lot of plastic waste, but we actually don't know much about how we know that it affects the environment, yes, negatively, but we actually don't know it in that detailed manner. So that's why I was going to ask if this kind of information could also, I work with a huge, we are a different groups, an umbrella body of different groups dealing with waste management. But if this kind of information could be passed almost like in a classroom way, like really passing this to the community, in this kind of with the slides like you did now, I think would be really great. I was going to ask if this could be possible, but I'm just not sure if this could be possible. But I found it it could be really benefiting to us.
It sounds like it would be wonderful. Do you have an interest in working on this idea? Because we don't have very many voices from Africa, and I just have to tell you, I studied in college. My study abroad was in Nairobi. And so I have very much affection for that city and the people who were kind to me there. But your idea is a good one. And I think it would be very interesting to brainstorm, how could we do this? Set it as a goal. What would we need to do to be able to do it? I don't know Nairobi well enough to know. It would take us working together and then maybe build something that could be, could inspire clubs all over the nation of Kenya.
It could really work. We are situated at the place where we have the biggest dump site in Nairobi, where all the waste from all parts of Nairobi are being disposed. But it's a landfill that was declared really full 20 years ago, but it still the government still continues dumping over there. So it's infiltrating to the neighborhoods, to where people are living, and people don't really know how to manage this kind of waste and also how to live with the plastics. So this is why I think it would be really, important to
Well,
pass
good.
this information.
Have you put your, did you sign up for the newsletter so we can see your email address?
Not yet, but I can share it here.
Very good.
Lori, I also posted in the chat an example of a global grant, how to manage plastic waste in India, and I think it can be useful also for you. This kind of article, and there is also a video where the project will be explaining in detail.
Yeah.
Very good.
I
Very
will follow.
good.
Yeah. Thank
Good.
you.
I look forward to working with you. This will be good. Let's see if we can make some, let's build something that's useful and will help the people of Kenya.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yes. Thank you.
I see a question from Francis McChesney, and it says, can we use the information you provided on our own social media? Yes and no. So anything that we've done in plastic solutions, all those things that credited back to the Plastic Solutions website, absolutely, please use them. We publish a blog twice a week, and the best of those blogs are mailed out in a newsletter once a month. But if you go to our website, use the search to search on any topic that you're interested in, and take that stuff, share it on your social media. There are buttons right there. We would be immensely grateful. The things that you saw that were from Reuse Wins, much of that information I don't have specific rights to, but these are groups that generally collaborate and share information. But there are a few things that I purchased from iStock, and I don't know what the rules are on that. So if you see something you want to use, just shoot me an email and I'll say yay or heck if I know, because it's iStock.
Okay, awesome. That's great.
Absolutely.
My sisters and I are creating a blog to give people information about how to use alternatives to single-use plastic, and we want to be able to cite to information on the different effects of plastic. So we're trying to make sure we do it properly. So anyway, we're having so much fun. We're getting close to publishing. So
that's exciting, and I would love to invite you to be a guest writer on one of our blogs. I mean, let's see.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Do some cross-pollination here.
Okay, that would be great. All right.
Yeah.
We haven't.
Oh, yes.
Hi, Larry. Jared, could you put your email in chat? I'd like to send you a note. So if you put your email in chat, I'll be able to capture that and send you something. And I wanted to ask Susan, have you and your partners put together any sort of a description of how you're doing your project, where you bought the reusables, and how you're handling the various things in the project? You're muted.
Unmute.
In the chat, here we go. If you go to Zero Waste Sustainable Bainbridge, you will see a link to our lending library. We basically, you probably are all aware of Buy Nothing groups. Buy Nothing started on Bainbridge Island and now international. People donate their dishes, wine glasses. We buy dishes at Rotary and add to our collection. And a lot of times people will have a wedding and borrow things from us, and then they will give us extras when they're done. So it's catching on, especially now that COVID is easing up and people are in our environment are very happy to avoid disposables. So hopefully that link will help. And there's an email there for any further questions any of you have on how we started. We'd be happy to write back and help.
That's awesome. I think that might make a very interesting program for a future Plastic Solutions meeting. Just it'd be fun to get Jane talking about how it started kind of in her house, and she's got people knocking on her door all the time. It's really a very cool story. Winifred.
Well, thank you, Lori. And Susan, I just want to add a little bit of dimension to this whole lending library that exists on Bainbridge Island. I'm with Rotary of Bainbridge Island, and we work really closely with Zero Waste and the Green Team. But what we have is an annual auction and garage sale basically every year. And this is something that's pretty unique to the island. I mean, I don't know any other Rotary Club in this area that does anything quite to this magnitude. This year was our 67th year, and we raised a lot of money. It's a 6-hour sale, and we raised more than $700,000. And it's based on the fact that the people who live on Bainbridge Island are very generous. And what happens at the end of the sale, or even sometimes during the sale, we have extra things like maybe casserole pots or silverware or things. And we often give or sell at a very, very, very reduced price some of these things to the lending library. So it's like a partnership. The lending library gets a lot of things from the Rotary auction. In return, they lend out some of these things to people. And then we have the benefit of having a local newspaper, the Kitsap Sun, do a really, really lengthy and detailed article about the lending library a few months ago, featuring Jane and Diane and others and all of their amazing work. And that spurred all this interest and growth. And I think it's going to be, like Susan said, in this more post-pandemic world, a very, very popular alternative for people who are hosting anything from big dinner parties to weddings to, bar mitzvahs to Thanksgiving feasts to whatever they're doing. So yeah, it's great. And people are becoming more receptive to the idea that you don't provide single-use plastics or single-use anything, but you bring your own, or you make it available to people and then you wash it afterwards.
Thanks, Winifred. John, you've had your hand up.
Thanks, Laurie. That was a really good presentation you gave. I'm one of 3 Rotarians from District 9810 in Melbourne, Australia, attending. And one of my colleagues is attending as well, Ashley Coleman-Bock from our club. We're interested in developing a policy on not just no single-use plastics, but no disposable goods generally. Are there any clubs in the US that have developed any sort of policies at the club level or district level or cluster level?
Not that I'm aware of. And if anybody hears of a club who has something like that, I would love to have it so that we can all plagiarize it. I mean, cite it as part of our research. No, we share this stuff. That's the beauty of being in a network like Rotary, is to find the good ideas, improve upon them, or tweak them. But I haven't heard of anything yet. And I would love you to promise me that when you come up with stuff, you will share it with us so we can get it out there around the world and let people, see what it evolves to.
Lori, I'll jump in there. John was referring to me. I'm developing the policy, inverted commas. I'll drop the draft into the chat so everyone can see it. It's not proprietary. Fantastic. It's terrible. I'm just setting expectations really low, 1 page, just some general statements. We're just working through it at the moment. So I'll give everyone access to the draft, and then as we develop it, might be able to share it more broadly back to the team.
That sounds wonderful. Fantastic. We're keeping old Dorico up past his bedtime. So are there any final comments before we close for this evening?
Excellent program.
And thank you, Tammy, for being our MC today. Did everybody get a chance to save their chats?
Yeah. Yeah, you can save the chat. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
I think
you
we'll
very
say good night or good noon or good morning. And work hard and take care of yourselves. We've got a big and important but doable project ahead of us. Take care.
much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye bye.